Today on Metaphysical Mississippi, we've got another installment of Ask a Witch with Mercury and Willow, as well as your co-hosts, Kristen and Emily. But today we have a special guest, and it's Jamie Della. And she is a priestess, healer, Chicana, witch, and a creativity mentor. And she also has a book coming out, released on September 26th. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that. So stick around. Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to have you on.
Oh, so happy to be here.
If you're half as cool as Kelly Mercury, then it's gonna be a fun night.
We're extremely similar.
Yes, exactly. I'm a little older, so I have a remainder of cool, just adding on just because I've lived longer. That's all.
You guys are gonna freak out because we're so similar. It's very strange.
Well, I forgot in the intro to also introduce that Jamie is related to Mercury. And so when she told me, she's just bragged about you so much, Jamie, you know, and so I was just thrilled when it was her idea to bring you on here and have fun with us with this podcast. So
I'm so happy she did.
Yes. Yay. So anyway, what we're going to do is we'll start off a little bit. We'll learn a little bit, let you share a little bit of
Your origin story.
Yeah, Jamie, if you don't mind. And everybody's already heard from Mercury and Willow, but and then we will get to the questions around the end, but I want to talk about the book. And Mercury mentioned that Willow and she also have a little bit helped a little bit with the book. So I want to hear all about that as well.
So, that's right.
Yes. So, all right. Tell us about your birth date and time. Let's start from the beginning.
Okay. So it was a cold, dark morning near Christmas. My grandmother had just transitioned to the other side. I was coming through the portal into this world on December 23rd. It was a wonder. Yes, well, Horus Day and all. And so that is how I came into this world. It was an interesting way to come into this world with grief at the same time and opportunity. With my mother's mother dying the month before I was born, I felt this strong pull to lift up and bring forward the wisdom of my ancestress, the wisdom of my female ancestors, those who had walked before me. And they also coming into this world with death, like literally on my shoulders. I've never feared it. I've never feared the other side. I've never feared speaking with the spirit world, because you pick up a picture of your grandmother, you talk to her from the beginning, from the very little moment, and she's talking back. I made a deal with my grandmother. When I was 22, I finally went to go see her grave. And I said, what I'd like for you to do is when you're nearby me, I want to smell the scent of old California native flowers. And when I need you, I'm going to spray your old perfume, White Shoulders. So I don't know if you remember White Shoulders, but I said, yes. So I would spray that when I needed her. So I grew up on this land that my family had lived on for over 200 years. So being a sensitive soul, you pick up things and you don't realize that those might be your ancestors' memories or thoughts that they had, especially if you're in that same place. And it was living in the bend of a river. And it was just a very, very powerful river who's always spoken to me. So I believe my beginning in magic begins with recognizing that there is a very thin veil that separates us from other portals, whether that's living and alive, or our spirit and the river spirit, or a tree spirit, or any of these things. It just became part of my upbringing to embrace that connection and always do my best to forge that connection. And that's what I've been doing since 2000 with my first book, The Wicca Cookbook. So, yeah, that's the beginning.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful. I love that.
Well, you look like you would have been a teenager in 2000. And you wrote a cookbook?
Right. I do. Yeah. See, I was rolling it out before I got here. Like I had an iron on my wrinkles. No. Born in 67. I'm 55 right now. And I'm the same age that my mentor was when I sat at her knee learning from her. And now I am playing that role. So I've lived very consciously as a witch, as a magician, as a magic maker from the time that I was very little, when another grandmother had said to me that my other grandmother was a psychic tarot reader, and she would tell us about spirit or portals and how to speak with the other side. And if they're, because I was awake and listening, she said, honey, you're like a porch light. All those spirits are going, oh, that one's listening, and when we moved to a house that was like a half a block away from where my family had built the first adobe in 1806, you have all those ancestors wanting to talk to you. And my Nana taught me, as a human in a human experience, I have realm, I have authority and autonomy here. And I get to tell the spirits, I'm sleeping. You don't get to bug me. And if you have that kind of authority, it's the same way that you hold your ground when you need to be calm, when there's bees around, or when you see a new dog and you open up and you learn to work with that energy that's unseen, but you can still move it with your intention and the way you hold your energy. I love it, Mercury. Just nodding away with me over there.
I'm just going to jump in because I prayerfully thought about this podcast, and
Emily, don't.
Sorry, laughing. I'm sorry. No. I told the spirits, God, to just delete this. The difference in intention and manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Is it?
Well, you just jump right in it.
Yeah.
Go for it. No, I don't mind, because I'm a Capricorn, and they always say we use and we manipulate, and that's what Capricorns do. So I've had to work with that word for a very long time. And being firstborn, I'm a little bossy. I'm just saying. I've been told.
Yes, you don't have to think about what. Like, no.
Bossy
I'm a
older
Leo
sisters.
and the third child. So
I'm the bossy one.
Yeah.
sorry.
So I feel that manipulation is, there's a, we manipulate bread when we're kneading it. So I feel like that word has developed a negative connotation to it, because our intention and we're manipulating things when we walk into a room. We change the vibration. And so when we have, like, one of the first times I really learned that lesson, I was attending an indigenous naming ceremony in the foothills of Los Angeles. And I was supposed to take part in this herbal walk and this special naming ceremony, but I felt obliged to tell the spiritual leaders that I was on my menses. And they said, oh, well, then now you can't go on the herbal walk. Now we don't want you to help with the food, and you have to do some special steps before the naming ceremony. And I didn't understand. And they brought an elder woman to me, and she explained, when you're on your menses, you're the most powerful. You cannot help but manipulate the room that you're in. And your intention might be good, but because you are so powerful right now, we need all the women who are on their menses to be in a sacred circle together, and we will serve you like the red tent. Anita Diamante's The Red Tent. And so I do believe that we manipulate, and we have to have that intention always, because that's what colors it. The manipulation is the energy, and the intention is the color hue on it.
Yep.
It's just been a dirty word.
It's true.
It has been a dirty word.
Yeah. Yeah, it has, because
Thank you.
Because my mom's a Leo, and we were just talking to her about manipulating. You know, because you have so much energetic charm and power, you can't help but sprinkle your pixie dust where you go. You know, but
Yes.
having that intention behind your manipulation, and also the accountability that however you're acting, whatever you have manipulated or changed, that you're willing to take the responsibility for your actions. That's a huge aspect for me within the craft and my path.
Yes, and
Does that
I
help?
know.
Does that shift it?
Yes, yes, and I've talked with Mercury and Willow also about manipulation. So this is the first time I've asked them about it, but I'm just going to share personally. This is not my show, but I was just saying that I'm in a season of learning how to use manipulation well, or intention.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm stepping into my power
Yeah.
of learning how to use intention.
So really all energy work is manipulation, right? It's your intention with it.
Correct. Essentially, it really is. And I feel like I really started to dive into that feeling too regarding manipulation, because I feel like, you know, ever since, for me, I had gone to visit Spain, where my ancestors were from, where they were colonists, and I had once loved them, and then I started realizing the cruelty that they committed in early California. And so I went to this castle, and I had this intention to bring water from Los Angeles, pour it on this castle in Spain, and say, may your thirst be slaked, and no one take more than their share. Well, this kind of intention reverberated back on me in a way that I didn't expect. And I suddenly became very, very aware when I manipulated energy that might be taking energy, not making energy. And I think that's the big difference, is that if in your manipulation, you're taking energy from somebody, like think of like a really snarky customer at a restaurant who's being just an asshole because they're the customer. That's manipulating in a bad way. And I was looking at every single time I would do that with my partner, with that, like, you're laying on the couch, could you please give me a glass of water? Like you're like in a like desert or something, you know, versus that's taking energy, you know, versus saying, darling, I'd really love it if you could grab me a glass of water. I'm so comfortable on the couch. That's making connection. So that's the difference for me with manipulation and intention. It's about making or taking energy.
I love that.
Oh,
what was that, Mercury?
I love that. Absolutely love that.
Thank you.
So,
I just love you.
I love you.
I'll take your notes. Okay, so with this, as you said, at the knee, was it Connie?
Yes,
Is that
Connie.
name
That's
Connie? And how did she model that for you?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Thank you so much. I like that. So how did she model this concept of intention or manipulation?
Yes.
Just energy work in general?
Yes.
Well, one of the things, I mean, I'm always going to go with my first answer, even though I'm like, oh, is that? Yeah, I'm going to do that one. Part of it was I saw her take on everybody's energy as a mentor and a coven leader and not let it go. I saw her hold on to people's pain, and I didn't want to do that. So that's one of the ways that I learned, was because that's not something I wanted to do. But so that's just one way in terms of her modeling it. But the other thing that she modeled for me was, I don't know if you've ever heard of the 5 love languages, you know, that people receive love from different ways. So for me, it's words of affirmation. I'm a writer. That's no, you know, so the way that my mentor, what she taught me was to keep releasing from showing like, I'm not doing this, but I want you to do this. And then the other thing that was very important to me was how to apply living every day. Like I fell in love with the witchcraft practice because of the sabbats, because of the holidays, because of celebrating nature and the changing of the season and finding a lesson. Like it's, you know, an Easter egg that you have to find in every holiday, that there's some gem that's just for you that has to do with nature. With in fall we release, in winter we rest, in spring we birth, and in summer we bloom. And learning how to live that in a very intentional way so that every mundane practices could be infused with magic. So when you're sweeping, not just sweeping like, oh my God, I'm sweeping. You're sweeping away all that doesn't serve you. You're sweeping away in gratitude for what has been. There's every act, you're cleaning a window. You're making it's more clear to see what is obstructing you from seeing. So intentionality became part of my magical practice because it's how I live every day. If I'm crushing garlic, I'm adding protection, you know, all the different herbs, I'm thinking about them and in their natural environment growing. She taught me to live and take every step with great intention.
Oh, I love that.
And I want to make sure what I say about like holding on to it and not letting go. It's kind of like when you're teaching your kids, like, I want you to do better. I'm learning how to take care of others and learn to take care of myself. And where you say that to someone who's younger, like, make sure you take time for yourself, because I didn't always do that. That's the other thing I want to say, is that there was this balance. And I'm also a body worker and a massage therapist, and I do Reiki, and I get to the point where I have fellow therapists next to me who are also like 10, 20 years younger, but they're doing like 5, 6 massages a day. That's my total for the week, because I want to refill every time. I need to fill myself up before I give to you. And she taught me the value of how important that was.
Oh,
yeah, that's something I'm still trying to figure out myself, because
but you also are the type of person that image of you sitting at her knee, and y'all know me, I always refer back to the Bible, but Mary sitting at Christ's knee while Martha was busy. I really so resonate with the sitting and the just absorbing. And I think we all need to do that.
I agree. And she was in a big Barcalounger chair, and I was literally at a cushion at her feet, and it's funny because I was raised Christian Scientist, so I was raised with the Bible a lot. Like, I still have the original Bible and Mary Baker Eddy's Key to the Scriptures with Mary Baker Eddy, that book from 1975. I still have this original collection. So my favorite Bible quote, which I actually include in the book, is that if you, and I'm going to have to paraphrase this, if you would remove a mustard seed from that mountain, you can say to yonder mountain, be gone, and it'll be gone, because you take that mustard seed, that thought that creates a story, that creates an identity, and then you pluck that original thought, that mustard seed. Oh, I know what it was. I totally said it wrong. If ye have faith of a grain of mustard seed, you could say to that mountain, yonder mountain, move, and it will move hence. That's how it goes. But it's that faith of a grain of mustard seed, and that's how small it is, of faith that you need to have to work miracles. So for me, what I grew up with was this idea that Christ was a brother, and with just a better understanding of how to heal, because he saw the wholeness. And to me, that's witchcraft, because you see the wholeness and the complete of your spell, and then you let it go and allow the universe to work with you. We co-create. When you get a great parking spot, you could come back and say, oh, did you see what I did? I manifested a parking spot. Or you could say, the universe and I worked together and we manifested a parking spot. Because I feel like when you start taking that credit all to yourself, you disconnect yourself from the web of life.
Yes.
And I feel that's really important. So It doesn't take much. It takes the faith of a grain of mustard seed to create miracles. And to me, that's taking that mustard seed of thought or whatever it was and taking it away, plucking it out. Oh, that person really didn't mean to hurt me, run over my toe. Like, you know, like sometimes we get upset. Like, I texted you and you didn't respond, and you don't know that it, like their power went out or something happened and they got lost. But you make up this whole story. Oh, I know what it was. When I went to her house last time, I don't think I flushed.
Exactly.
and so there's this huge story. So you can use, I feel like that's an important thing too, because with witchcraft becoming so exposed so quickly, there's a lot of misconception or maybe not understanding, and people don't realize that you can be a Christian witch, you can be a Buddhist witch, you can combine all of who you are and what you love about spirituality around the world and bring it into your daily practice. It doesn't, you're not like Tuesday a witch, Monday a Christian, Thursday, like you don't speed up.
You just grab it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a little here, a little there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Take
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
I have a question, but do you want me to save it for the?
You go on.
Because this might be more like a listener question, but it's not really a question, more of a comment, but kind of a question. So a few years ago, I was kind of, early in my spiritual awakening into the more metaphysical. I've always been, we were born very spiritual people, but, witchcraft was something I did kind of look into and explore a little bit. But to officially study witchcraft, it was so overwhelming. I just like, okay, that's just too much. Do I do witchy things every day? But I don't call myself a witch because I don't, I have a few of Scott Cunningham's books just because I bought them and I use them as references sometimes, but I don't call myself a practicing witch. Is it common for newbies to just feel so overwhelmed
Absolutely. Like one of Mercury's books overwhelms me just looking at it, though. There's like the correspondence book that's like, it's just huge. It's like, I don't know, 3-4 inches tall. It's forever. And this is a magical. Yeah. It's like, it's like a dictionary. It's like memorizing. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the first things that gets overwhelming. You look at all these things, right? You like, oh, you could have a cauldron, you could have a chalice, you could have bowls, you could have bells, you could have wands, you could have all this stuff, and you feel like you're supposed to get it now. But the thing of it is all those magical tools, all those new plants and herbs that you want to meet, and all the crystals you want to play with and touch. To me, it's like the old woman in the shoe, and you could have too many kids and not know what to do. So you learn one at a time, and you have a relationship with it, so that when you're working with basil, you know how to grow it, you know how to, what recipes it goes well in, and what maybe moon cycle it feels empowered to be near or underneath the moon for some reason. You just follow along with what calls to you, because I believe we live in a live world. And that the lavender can call to us as much as we call to it. That when that feather drops down in front of you, that really is a message to lighten up, or that, you were supposed to take off or fly or whatever feels right to you, that the universe is in constant conversation with us. So all we need to do is listen and develop relationships with the energy that's reaching out to us. And so it's like a baker trying to like memorize what every spice does. Like you'll do it one at a time, as is needed. And that's often what happens, as needed. Plants, volunteer plants. You're like, have you ever had a volunteer plant that just shows up in your yard? You're like, I don't remember planting you, What
are you doing here, man?
Yeah, exactly. And that plant needed to show up to help you, showed up to be there for you. And so that's, I'll learn you today. I mean, you can't learn the plants that don't show up that way, like, or whatever it is. You just have that connection. You make the connection, and maybe you start with, the days of the week. Okay, what's, today's Monday. That's Moon Day. Oh, okay, today's Moon Day. It's something that has to do with moon and relationship and sisterhood, like we're doing right now, and women energy talking together. This happens on a moon day. That's like that. It's going to go well. It's a moon day. And so and then you hear something about like Mercury retrograde. Well, what does that mean? Well, what does it feel like? And rather than this is the time for your car to like shut down, it's not that. It's a time for rest. Yep. We rest because Mercury spins around the sun in 88 days. And so it's on the back side of it 3 times a year. Our life doesn't have to fall apart 3 times a year, but we need to slow down 3 times a year, just like we rest 8 out of 24 hours. It's part of the cycle of rest is that 1/3 for integration and restoration. And so you look at how it feels for you, because we're learning a lot. There's a lot available now through memes and whatnot about witchcraft, but memes don't have experience. People do. You have experience.
Yes. Well, this sounds like a great time to move into the experience that you had delivered on your doorstep in a box.
Yes.
Share.
So then my next book that's coming out is called A Box of Magick. It's my 10th book. So I was on a book signing tour in February of 2020. I was at in Santa Cruz, California, and I went to go get a reading, and the reader said, "Oh, there's somebody here who's visiting. We feel their presence." And he starts describing my mentor. She's got short pixie hair. She's a bigger woman. She's got cat-like eyes. I'm like, that's Connie. That's my Wiccan elder high priestess. And he said, "Oh, well, she says that she'd like you to get a picture of her and take her on your next book signing tour." So I said, okay, because when you get messages from spirit and they feel benevolent and kind, even though mysterious, you just go do it. So I put out a post. Does anyone have a picture of Connie? And her daughter responded with a picture. And so then we started talking. We hadn't talked, and Connie, her mom had been gone for 15 years. So we hadn't really connected much. And then a couple of months later, as everybody else is cleaning up, Alexa was cleaning up and found all of her mom's magical education and study and curricula from the early 70s, from like the ESP Institute from 1971, and correspondence class from the School of Wicca, which is located in Missouri. So all of this really old stuff. And she said, "Do you want any of this? Would you like this?" I said, "Yes." So then in May of 2020, 23 pounds of my Wiccan mentors' magical curriculum and education showed up on my doorstep. And I didn't know what to do with it all. I mean, I would call Mercury and I'm like, what do I do with all this? Because it was just, I can't even, I mean, it was, when I say
it was like on napkins, it was on like little like napkins, pieces of paper, like the stuff you showed me was like that old paper that like went through a word processor, and it had
the dot matrix where it was still connected.
Oh yeah.
And on yellow pad of paper, handwritten, and sometimes, and then
riddles.
So then it was riddles. So here's my riddle. Okay, so I'll be telling you my riddle. My riddle is Mercury. You can't answer this one because you might remember it. But what do you call 13 witches in a hot tub? A self-cleaning coven.
Yes.
so it had things like that, and handwritten hand fasting notes for a hand fasting ritual, and so just all these like copies of books and ancient books that are out of print that you can't find today. A correspondence school that she took with Dr. Leo Martello, who was an Italian gay rights activist witch in the 70s. Just an immense amount of work. And I had to be really careful because I only wanted to reuse in my next book, I only wanted to use the things that Connie had written. I couldn't do anything that was copied from somebody else. And like I had at one point, I thought I was going to do something, and then I found it in a book. I was like, oh my gosh, that's like, I thought it was a graph that Connie had come up with, but it was something in another. I mean, this person, that book is out of print. No, I don't think anybody would. It would be such a rare person to know, but I would know.
Yeah.
Right.
I would know that I was taking somebody else's work, and I didn't want that karma, basically, of using someone's work without appropriately asking and whatnot. And I don't know how to, I didn't know how to find that woman. And that book was literally written in like 73. In any case, so what I finally did after a year and a half and talking with Connie and talking with Mercury and just trying to figure out what to do with it, I finally heard my mentor say, tell them about us. And I thought, oh, our relationship, that's where the magic was. Sitting at her knee and asking, okay, how do I apply this though? I mean, how does the moon's change have anything to do with my failing marriage? Like, how does, memorizing color correspondences have anything to do with raising, sons on my own? How does this have to do with any of my challenges? And she would always help me find that way. And with bigger things too. I mean, divorce is a big thing, but also relationships with my mother, saying, how can I say I love the goddess if I have mommy issues? And so when you're 20, when I was 33, when you ask that question, it's everything to you. It doesn't feel right until, as we age, or as Connie said to us, we realize that the goddess is the great mother, and all us mothers are little mothers doing our best to be some version of this divine feminine. And not every one of us is stepping up to even try to do that. But those witches of us, we're doing the best that we can, but we're still little mothers. And not one of us came on this planet to give birth to somebody else. We have our own agendas, our own stories, our own relationships. That's one aspect of who we are. So I decided that I really wanted this to be about learning from mentors, learning from each other, not learning from memes, not learning even from books as much, but recognizing that you can go out in your community and find someone who has wisdom, find somebody who has something that you need to share, something that they need to share. Because that was the first thing Connie said to me when she called me. She said, the spirits tell me I'm supposed to teach you. Like, I'm supposed to share with you my information. She knew it, that she was supposed to share and give it to somebody else before it passed on. She passed on without being able to share it. So then I decided that I would put the book on the hero's journey, which is a 12-step that Joseph Campbell identified as these basic steps that we take through our personal transformation. We answer a call to adventure. We meet mentors. We meet our allies and the antagonist. We meet our own inner shadow, and we come back with that goddess chalice, with the cup of the goddess, which is our own self-knowledge that we then share with the world. That's what the hero's journey is about, is really discovering more about yourself through those trials and tribulations. And so I placed that book, the 12 chapters of A Box of Magick, on the 12 steps of the hero's journey. And then I include the narration that explains each part. What does it mean to answer your feral nature? What does it mean to choose an herbal ally? What does it mean to look at the universal influences that are affecting you? Like Mercury retrograde, where when we first started talking about this in the 90s, Mercury retrograde was just about slowing down. Now that everybody knows about it, it's about your car crashing. It's the same Mercury retrograde. It's been happening for this, for thousands of years, and it's not suddenly something else, but it shifted. So knowing when that is, fear, false evidence appearing real, or when it is truth for yourself. And so then each chapter includes rituals and meditations, because the narration is for your brain, the emotional relationship that you and your air energy, and that the air of the 4 elementals. So that's the air. And then the relationship between Connie and I is the water. And then you have the spells and the rituals that you do, and that's the action of fire and the somatic experience of earth. And so that is the book. It's a braided book that includes narration and memoir and spells and rituals, so that you can hopefully also live that magic and find someone to either mentor yourself or to be mentored, to mentor each other, to be open to what we all have to teach.
So is this a good, would this be a good book for a beginner? Is it beginner
I think
friendly?
so. I feel it is, because this is actually a new market. This is a new publisher. This is Sounds True Publishing, and they have a lot of meditation and metaphysical, but not as much Wiccan. So there was me needing to bridge and to also to bring people along who are new, to introduce them. But I also feel that one of the things that happens if you've been practicing or calling yourself a witch and memorizing all the correspondences since you were 15, then what happens is you can become a little jaded, and it's not as wonderful anymore. It's not as awesome when your spells manifest. You're like, yeah, of course that one did. I knew it. I was just a little late, actually. Like if you get to that place where you don't have wonder anymore for your spell work, then this is why this book is for you, because this book is that childlike wonder that is at the basis of our magic making. Of kids outside, building rafts for fairies in streams, and ladybug parasols, and all those little things that we would do using our imagination, and say, oh, is this real? Is this magic? Why can't it be both? The lines aren't that firm. They're much more open.
So how did I love it? How did Mercury?
I'm just like,
Oh my God, that is so funny. Okay, which song is that again?
Cashmere.
Cashmere. That was Uncle Bobby's favorite song. Do you know that?
That's my Uncle Bobby, and that's her.
That's my dad. That she just brought in my dad.
You did. You totally did.
I'm like, wait a minute. Dad's here.
Yeah. Uncle Bobby.
So I think, I don't know, Emily, if you were going to ask this, but I'm going to throw this in there. So Kelly and I did not know each other growing up. We met when she was, what we decided, like, you were 5 and I was 11. I think is what it was, something like that, at a family party. My dad was a Peter Pan. And so he was in and out of lots of people's lives, including my own. And so I didn't see him very often. And so Kelly and I met when we were very young, running around a pool, dodging dangling cigarettes from our family. And and then we didn't meet again until I was 40. And my dad had died, and I went out to the funeral. I hadn't seen him since I was 27. At my wedding. And then our uncle called me and found our number. And so we showed up, and Mercury and I met. And when we saw each other, it was instant love. And we were walking this similar path. We were walking this magical, witchy path. And she already had my first book and didn't know it was her cousin.
Wow.
Yeah. So because it was a marriage name.
That's right.
So she already had it. And I loved that. I love that she had that. And then we have stayed connected over those years, learning more about each other and our paths and our connection, and the grandmother that really connects us and really brings that magic through, that old school magic that is just part of our blood. It's just, and so it's been such a relief, because what I love about Mercury is that she's the quiet, I mean, kind of, relatively speaking, but I mean, like, she brings her, I know, but what I mean to say is she has an insular world. Yeah. And I have a very out and expressive world. So it's like the yin and yang sometimes when we are talking, we have the same sensibility, but different expressions of it. And I find that so beautiful, because when you're out on the skinny branches, a lot of times you're like, is anything showing that it shouldn't be showing? And then the one who's insular from the kitchen goes, you're fine. You know? And it's so wonderful and amazing to have those witchy women who express it in different ways, so that you don't get stuck thinking your way is the only way. Because one of the most empowering things about witchcraft is you are your own best teacher. Over and over and over again. And choosing to call yourself a witch is choosing to call yourself wise. That's what the word means. That's the etymology of it. So, and there's also, yes, of course, there's the baggage of, what people might think, but the more we stand up for it. For myself, someone asked me that recently, like, how did you have the courage to do this in 2000, to stand up, where people would say things like, oh, how to cook witches, when I had my cookbook, or I was a consultant. I lost jobs because people would find out that I was a witch. I like all these different things. Like, how did you keep doing it? And to me, I said, I grew up during the feminist movement, and it was as important for me to stand up to be a witch and to reclaim that word as it was for me to stand up and be a woman and reclaim that word. And for myself, and I mean that for the divine feminine, not any of the trans fluidity, no offense there. I just mean for myself, what does that mean to be a strong woman, so that the divine feminine principles are honored. It's not just about gender equality. It's about the divine feminine being honored, our rest, our introspection, our connection. You ask a woman how to give you directions. You ask a man how to give you directions, and he'll say, you head a half a mile and you turn left, or you go east, or, one of these things. A woman will say, you go down the big hill. It gets a little steep. There's a big tree at the end. And then you turn where the tree is, and then you'll see the mountain zooming up. But don't go there. Wait till you see the white fence, because we talk in relationships. We talk in court and how we connect to people, and empowering that way. We use so many more words than men. It doesn't mean we're inefficient. It just means we're more expressive. And learning to love that part of me and to honor it in a world that doesn't, that was so as empowering as it is to say that I am a divine co-creatrix with the universe. I am a witch. I do magic. I create spells. I manifest. It was as important to say one as the other to me. You couldn't separate them. And it's kind of like, if you know how to do the Heimlich maneuver and you see someone choking, you do it. If you have the courage to stand up or be out on the skinny branches, you do it. And then when you feel like your backpack is too full, you take a seat, let someone else take a turn. Yeah. Hands up, pencils down. You did your best.
Yep. I love that.
Well, so what did Willow and Mercury, what did y'all contribute to the book?
Okay.
Hey, y'all can talk now.
Well, I named it.
Yeah, that's the first thing.
I named it.
She gave me the title of the book.
And say that the title again.
A Box of Magic.
Yeah, because she said, you got a box of magic. It is.
She called me and she was like, I got this 23-pound box from Connie's daughter. And I was like, oh shit, that's cool. You got a box of magic. And then we were both like, oh, and the book wasn't even, a thought yet. She hadn't even, opened the box yet. And then as she started going through it, and the book kind of started to materialize, and we were talking about it, and I was like, oh crap, that's the Box of Magic. And then it was like, oh, that'd be a great book title. And then as we were going through, and she was sharing, as she was writing, sharing bits, and, I'm going to add the elements, and we were talking about just different, and I was telling her about she was at that time doing the, at Jack Zen, we were having the meditations, and she was writing, each one was an elemental meditation. She had the air meditation and the fire meditation. And so when I was telling Jamie about her air ritual and stuff, then she's like, wow, that would be so cool, you know, to do for the air aspect of the book, to include, you know, the ritual. And so, you know, we got it, you know, and she fine-tuned it and wrote it, and I sent it on to Jamie. And so it was just this really neat, and it was as life was happening. Like, it was just, and you know, I'm not a writer, I don't do that, you know. And so it was like she was adding aspects to her book as just, it was as it was rolling, you know. And that it was really neat.
Yeah, it was fun because I wanted to, because in addition to the holidays, my practice is also very firmly based on the 4 directions and the 4 elements. And so I wanted to have yeah, and
we
I wanted
practice extremely similar, and so does she. So it is all very, you know, similar.
Yeah. So I wanted to give an experience of each of these elements. Like, what does it feel like to really be in the watery realm, or the fiery realm, or the earth realm? Well, I have no air in my chart, like none. I don't know how to lighten up. It's not a thing. I try, and I'm just silly, but I'm not light. And so I didn't know
That's the
how.
yin and yang, because I'm all air. Like, I'm all air.
Yeah. And so I was like, I don't know how to do this, because you get to a point when you're writing a book and it gets a little unwieldy, and you can see where there's pockets that aren't as strong as others. You start to see the big picture, and you start to see where some parts might be a little weak. And for me, it was with that air. And of course, the first thing I do is turn to Mercury, and she's like, I got you. right away. Yeah, so then we were able to include it.
Oh no, this just popped in my head. Did Mercury and Willow, did you also make a connection with Connie in preparing for this?
No, because it was one that she had already started working on.
Oh,
It was
okay.
her own, like,
Right.
and so
it wasn't like I was
like channeling or bringing anything.
writing
Okay.
it for that
Gotcha.
purpose, or
It was
that
just
would have been something that we would have needed
yeah.
to do.
Yeah, it was just, it was
But-
funny. It was when she needed it. I
It
have
was
it.
nice.
There you go. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah.
I had already wrote it, but the whole time though, I mean, it's like we kind of felt a connection with the box, because Kelly's like, look at this, look, you know, we were like working together every day. And so every time Jamie would send something, or send something to read, or write something, and be like, what do you think about this? Kelly's like, look, you read this too. Now you tell me, you know, what do you think? So it was, you know, it was kind of, there was a connection formed. But, you know, as far as for me writing that air meditation, I had already wrote it when she needed it. Like,
I understand.
Thanks, universe.
Yes.
So maybe Connie was connected with us way before I even knew it.
You
Yeah.
should know it. Yes.
So Jamie, from the time you, maybe not from the time you got the box, but from the time you decided to, okay, this is going to be a book, to the time you sent it off to the publisher, how long did that take?
So I received it in 2020, May of 2020, and and then it sat there, I believe, for a year and a half before I is that right? I think it sat there for a year and a half before I did anything with it. And then I'm like, oh God, that's a good question. I sorted it for a very long time. Feels like a year and a half, but I know I sold it in October and I believe it was 2021. So I guess what happened, because I have 9 other books, you can sell a book without writing the whole thing. So I just wrote a proposal. So I just wrote the first 30 pages. So that's what happened. It was like a good year. And then I started actually putting a proposal together after a year of having it. And then that took me several months. And then we sent it to several publishers. And then my publisher, Sounds True, bought it in October of 2021. And then it comes out, like, it's like 2 years later. It's a long process.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is your time to plug it. Before we get into the questions, I mean, I do know that that it's available on your website.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
And
there's some treats with pre-ordering too, isn't there?
yes. There's bonus features for pre-ordering. The affirmation deck, strokes of the athame, which and the athame is a witch's ritual knife. I'm all doing it, and so but you just draw because there's every point of the star. Every point of the star is relates to either the spirit and the four directions or the four elements, and so so that you would draw that the strokes of the athame if you want to bring in earth energy or send earth energy away, and the same with air, fire, or water. So that was one of the things in there, this diagram of how to draw out these things. So that's one of the PDFs for a bonus feature. I also got to read the audiobook.
Yeah.
So that's now available to download on Audible. Well, you can't download it yet. You could just buy it and then you could listen to it in September 26th. So, but, and then let's see, the book is also available through Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And then there's Bookshop, which is kind of an online store for independent bookstores. And then you can order it from anywhere, any bookshop that you go to support your local independent bookstore or eclectic shop. You could be able to get it that way. And then I also write a newsletter that goes out on the new and the full moon, and 2 blogs. One is called Writing the Magic, which is just a magical practice, a life of a writer in a magic world, and Homesteading the Hollows, which is, we purchased last year a 45-acre cannabis farm, old cannabis farm, and now instead my partner's going to plant artichokes instead of cannabis.
You're great.
He's the market's a little bit more solid. Yeah. Well, so in any case, so I write about homesteading. I write about, how do you like learning about the well and the septic and moving the soil around and creating, garden boxes and the plants that I love, and developing a relationship with chamomile more than just, something you would give to your child, but really how to do, I love to do facial steams. It's one of my practices with fresh flowers, where I put that in a bowl and I pour steaming water over it. And just like we did with like Vicks back in the day, when you put your head, but with flowers like lavender and yarrow and chamomile, and as a way to soften your expression. It's one of the self-care things that I might do before giving a massage, a 20-minute or 15-minute meditation and facial steam before I give to another person. So it's part of that practice, and working with each of those herbs, getting to know them. As someone said to me the other day, when you work with herbs or crystals or whatnot, they become your allies, right? And you work with the ones because you wouldn't necessarily, ask a stranger to give you a ride to the airport, but you would ask a friend or a sister, someone you have a relationship with. And the same thing is true whether you work with plants or animals or crystals or deities. Any of that, having that relationship first that's how you build the magic, because it's through the relationship that our magic is the foundation of it.
Yes.
Preach,
Yes.
sisters.
I was just teaching that this weekend. Yeah.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, she did an herbal class.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, working in harmony with herbs, and we meditated on it. We talked about it. We, learned to form connections with plants before we even talked about the plants and what they were and who they were. Like introducing my friend.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. Because you wouldn't say, I used Mercury for a ride to the airport. You know what I mean? Like back to the word manipulate. You don't, we don't, with you, if you're working with lavender in a recipe, it's like I work with it. It's that it's the reciprocity of respect.
Yes.
With all these things that you work with, recognizing that we sometimes think that we're, I don't know, either higher and we're using them, but maybe they're using us to express what calm is in the world.
Right.
Yeah. And that way it's not Emily.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah.
Well, I'm feeling what you're serving. I'm
I mean, you're picking up what she put down.
Or she's eating what I'm serving. We'll get there.
Yeah. That's it.
And I think that's one reason why I was doing witchy magical things in my everyday life as I was working on my own personal health and healing issues and spiritual awakening that were witchy before I knew they were witchy. And then when I realized they were, I started kind of studying, and that's when I quit because it got so overwhelming.
Mhm.
This is encouraging me to maybe that I do think we do evolve and grow into, or we cycle in and out of different practices as the seasons of our life or the year,
Mhm.
but it was already on my mind over this past weekend that some of the things that I was doing in my life, say 5 years ago, that helped get me to where I am now are no longer a part of my everyday life. And I'm
Mhm.
almost depressed about it. I'm kind of going through right now I feel kind of pulled in too many directions. And but for me, cedar and rosemary were two plants that basically saved my
Mm.
not literally, but and I they're not really a part of my practice anymore.
But think about it.
Except
We drink more water and take more vitamin C when we're sick than when we're healthy. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
sometimes we have to go back to developing a maintenance practice, not a, absolutely nothing or tons of things or absolutely nothing,
Yeah,
tons
yeah,
of things,
yeah.
Right.
Moderation.
Yeah.
And I think
And harmonizing.
Yeah.
And rosemary's for remembrance. So maybe that rosemary is bringing you back to where you were, and that's part of the resistance of using it again. So find a different ally.
Oh, I like that.
Maybe so. Well, I think one thing too that happened with me, and maybe this is common with people as they grow and then they become practitioners, is when I was exploring these things and doing them for myself, it was fun, it was magical, I learned so much. And now that I'm a practitioner, it's like this responsibility, and I'm just like that that I wouldn't say I'm fearful. It's not fear. It's before I was a
Pressure.
practitioner, performance anxiety, maybe, I don't know. But before I was a practitioner, I could just experiment. And if it worked, fine. If it didn't, fine. And now I do feel a little bit of a responsibility to be more cautious about the things I do or the time that I spend on things. Emily and I both suffer from this rabbit hole syndrome where, it's squirrel, and where I am in my life right now, I don't have time to do that, but that was fun. I liked being distracted. I liked going off on
that
the
Balance.
You
You
gotta
need more balance.
find your
Yeah.
balance in that, and have that time for yourself, that to connect yourself so that you're able to help others connect, because that's, I mean, you have a really good superpower of that, of bringing people together and making connections. And sometimes we all feel a little disconnected, you know what I'm saying? And you got to find what brings you back to that. Like today mine was Venus, apparently.
She painted Venus today.
I painted
Venus came.
But you've got to make that time for yourself, and keep those connections going. And they change. They're going to change. It's not going to be
Yeah.
the same thing that you've always done, because you're changing and evolving. And you're a teacher now, but you're still always going to be a student. We're always
I
going to be
know.
Always.
students. We're always,
Always.
we've got to find that what drives us, and what drives us is learning and continuing that growth, go into that silent retreat. You know what I'm saying? Like,
But here's what I'm being resistant to, and I'm being stubborn about. I enjoyed learning when I was doing it for the fun of it, but now I feel like I have to learn it because now I'm supposed to know all this stuff. And it's
Because now it's
like,
your job. You made it your
that's
job.
my
and now
job.
it's your
And
job.
so now I'm just like a deer in headlights. I want it to be fun again and not worry about if I retain it or not worry about if I know what everything is.
So create an altar for that. Create a little space for your childlike wonder. Create a space that will hold the intention of this, of the accumulation of information to be entertaining and fun and engaging for you. But create what you want. Like you've done a great job of explaining to us the fear, right? Or the hesitation or the obstacle. Put up a picture of Ganesha, remover of obstacles. Put up a picture of yourself as a small child. Maybe place a sprig of rosemary, like remembering your childlike wonder, remembering how much fun it is to engage your brain versus, well, what if I study all this? And sometimes it's one of those things, and I'm going to just say it out loud, is sometimes as we get older, we get embarrassed because we don't retain as easily as we used to. So sometimes we just don't play the game because we don't play it as good as we used to could. So, and and that's judging yourself again. So if the information comes in with that intention of just blessing you with a light kiss, I hope this is fun for you for however long it lasts. But having that, you said it's an obstacle. So a picture of Ganesha, a picture of yourself, maybe when you enjoyed it, maybe you don't have to go back as a child, just of that age when you started. And rosemary is for remembrance. And the reason rosemary is for remembrance is, as the myth goes, the sun had come up at winter solstice and was returning to its strength and went through the countryside, rambling along with its bright light, and saw all this deadness, and then finally saw the rosemary. And the rosemary had stayed evergreen because she remembered, them remembered the sun's energy and held it within their heart. So that's why the rosemary, because of its evergreen quality, is for remembrance. So that ability of you to have joy is evergreen. It wasn't just a finite period of your life. So create an altar for the opposite.
Okay. Thank you.
Create a dream. Create an altar for the dream. Yeah.
Okay. Altar for the dream.
I like that.
Altar for the dream and the wonder, because I miss, like you said, I miss the wonder of it all.
Magic and the wonder. Yeah.
Because back when I used to could just wonder, didn't have to know all the answers, and now I feel like I'm on the hot seat sometimes that I'm supposed to know the answers.
Yeah.
And I don't always know the answers.
That's why we have Google.
It's okay, Emily. It's okay not to know all the answers.
But unfortunately, Google is going to bring up everything, and not everything on the internet.
I was going to say,
it pertains to the esoteric is right, or is current, or
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Correct,
or experiential, because it's
Well, the first listener question I want to ask is from Natalie, and you kind of already touched on it, so that's why I want to bring it up. You said your book talks about the 4 directions and the 4 elements, and so what element do you feel most drawn to in your personal practice, Jamie? I know it's not air.
It's not air. I'm a triple earth sign. So for me, it's earth, earth, earth. I'm also a potter, so I can get in the mud and do that and be in with the clay. I'm a little pig pen around the house. I just love being gritty and barefoot and hugging trees. And so I'm an earth girl. And then
are
if
you
it's not earth, then I'm fire. And then watch out.
earth and fire? With a little fire. So let me ask you this,
Mhm.
is that necessarily in your chart, or is that just what you feel more?
Well, you
You-
know, it's in my chart, but my mom, bless her heart, she's a Leo, and she didn't want me to be a Capricorn. So she would tell me, you are the Sagittarius, you are the philosopher, you are the wanderer, the student of life. I was like, huh, but I don't want to go anywhere. Like, so I feel like, you know, I was told I was this fire sign, and maybe that pulled me up out of, you know, from being kind of gray flannel, boring Capricorn. But I feel like Capricorns age backwards. So I have felt myself very stoic with my hooves stuck in the ground. And I felt myself loosening up as I go so that I tread more lightly on the earth. So I have really somatically felt this energetic, you know, earth energy that is so who I am. It's the colors I wear. It's, you know, it's so much of just integrated into my practice and how I do things. And, you know, even my kids, I had made sure they went to a school that where kinesthetic learning was a big part of the education. Well, the movement by, you know, learning by movement, that was so important to me. So it's just integrated into every part of my life. And I'm very tied to my ancestors, and that's a very earthy kind of a thing too. So
Yeah.
that's also where I come in.
All right. Well, the next one we want to ask, and this is from Jessica. Oh, okay. I want to know this. Do all witches perform spells and
No.
ceremonies? No.
All witches don't do anything. So there's not one thing that all witches do. We'll just say that except for maybe get up in the morning. But
Yeah.
so
but some get up at night.
that's about it. Some get up at night. Exactly. So
But do
right.
they-
It's not even, some get up in the afternoon. So no, not all witches except for the fact that I believe that we cast a spell every time we speak. Because the word spell means we spell a word. We spell it out. So the word spell just means to cast your word. So every time you cast your word, you're creating a spell, whether you call it that or not. When you're creating magic, when you send energy out, whatever you send out, if you throw out a boomerang and it has poop on it, it's going to come back with poop on it. Like if you can manifest things, it's whatever you send out will come back to you in some way, shape, or form, just because we live in a world of reaction, and so that's definitely part of my practice. And what's important to me is it comes back to intention.
So spell casting and rituals is really a form of manifesting, but all witches probably do manifesting work, because I think all humans do, whether we realize it or not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a spell to me is just a prayer in 3D. So one of the examples
I told you, she said that.
One of the ways I like to explain that is if you think of It's a Wonderful Life, where Donna Reed is doing the housewarming blessing and she holds up the salt. May your house always have flavor, then holds up the bread. When your home never know hunger, and holds up the wine. May you always know joy and prosperity. That's a spell, because she's assigned that salt is for flavor, that bread is for sustenance, that wine is for joy and prosperity. We've assigned those things to represent something to us, and you put them together with the power of 3. Now you have the basis for your spells. So that's why I say spells are prayers in 3D, because it helps people who have been marketed to not like witches, or to be afraid of witches, and to be afraid of this witchcraft. What I like to do is use as many words that people are comfortable with, or familiar with, at least, to introduce unfamiliar concepts. And that might be that a witch is a kind person if you've been told your whole life that they're not. You know, because people will say that, well, are there bad witches? And I'll be like, are there shitty blondes? Are there
Yeah.
are there mean brunettes? Like yes, like it doesn't matter the religion, the look, the ethnicity, the gender, anything. It doesn't matter because we are all just people. And it's just a practice of being wise. And that wisdom comes from watching nature and recognizing our connection, the old indigenous teachings of being connected to the web. That is a very important aspect of witchcraft, is recognizing that connection, because it's through those relationships that we cast our spells and work our magic.
I want to end the last question, and then we want to let you go. It's been such a fun time. Just spew out a few. What are some good resources that you've used over the years? I know Mercury and Willow has shared with us, but Jessica was wondering what would be your top 2 or 3 author, if you just want to say an author or a particular book or resource.
That's easy. Authors are easier for me.
Yes.
But my very, very first book that got me into this witchcraft practice was The Spiral Dance by Starhawk. So that was the very first book. That was the very first book, because for me, that introduced the concept that God could be a woman. And I feel like that idea of bringing power to our divine source, that it has no gender, but that it has been in times women been revered, just like the patriarchy is in power right now, that the matriarchy was once in power. And to find that balance in between where they work in harmony together, that to me is what the craft is about, is finding that harmony, because you're not always going to be in balance. You can't always do 50-50 with everything, but you can work in harmony. And so that to me is really important. But so that one, Vicky Noble also is another powerhouse person for me because of her fierce pushing for the goddess. Scott Cunningham, as you mentioned, yay for Scott Cunningham. That's another source. And then see, for me, it's been very experiential. So my practice has been very much about how important it is to practice what I'm reading about. And I don't worry about memorizing, because like you said, you have Google. If you've got, like, you get a new ring or a crystal or a quartz, you're like, which one is this? And you can find out who these allies are in our magical world, how they're connecting with us. So those are the first 3 that come to my mind, because I'm really enjoying some of the work that Pam Grossman is doing. She Waking the Witch podcast she has, and she has, I think it's called, no, Waking the Witch is her book. Witch Wave is her podcast, but she is very she's young and powerful, because she is reaching the mainstream in a way that I find to be very empowering. And I like how she represents herself. She's one of those very dignified people, which is really amazing, because I'm not, so to have that out there in the world as an exemplar witch, I think is really cool, because I'll be the one that'll be farting and burping going, whoops, was that me?
Something in your hair, dirty feet.
Yeah. Like the lipstick, when I put it on, it'll be here on my teeth, or so I like that, because I feel like she's such the antithesis of what people think a witch will look like or be. And so I think that's fun that she's out there. And then of course the, incomparable Stevie Nicks.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not just literature, there's also music. And the new young musician that I love, Devin Cole, has a song out called Witch. And that's really fun too. So I feel like just, it's so important as you go forward and you're reading material and you're looking up books and you're considering whether or not you want to buy or really take in what they say, find that one of the most important things is to really fine tune your intuition by knowing where it resonates in your body. So when you walk into a room and you can feel there's been an argument, where do you feel that tension? Where do you feel that need to recoil? Is it in your chest? Is it on the back? Chills go up the back of your neck or your arms, or your feet go cold or numb. And then, so that's your stop sign. And then your go sign, when you walk into a room and you could feel the love and you can feel the welcomeness. Where do you feel that in your body? Because that is the one indicator of your intuition speaking to you, and it speaks to everyone differently. So if we start with the little questions, the little yes, no questions about just reading energy in a room, then we extend that to picking up a book. Is this the right book for me? Picking up a crystal. Is this the right crystal for me? Being drawn in a nursery and looking at all the plants that you have available. Who wants to come home with me? Once you recognize your stop go sign, then you can ask yourself any question
Oh, I love
and get an
that.
answer.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Isn't she awesome?
Yeah, I know. I just want to go. Well, I guess we'll wrap this up. Again, we can go to Jamie's website, and that's jamiedella.com.
That's an easy one.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Willow and Mercury. I'll have all of your ways people connect with you on our website at metaphysicalms.com.
And in the show notes.
And we'll put everything in the show notes. But I'm super excited about the book.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I just can't wait to go order it.
Yeah.
Yay.
So
Thank you.
and thank y'all. It really
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
this has been a
Yeah.
delightful.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I
Made my
appreciate it.
day.
Yay.
Love you, Jamie.
Love you. Mwah, mwah,
Bye.
mwah.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I'm gonna sit-
The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance in the program does not imply endorsement of them or any entity they represent.